All right, David, you ready for me?
We'll give it our best.
Good. Today, I would like to talk about the yoga of Jesus. What does that mean, the yoga of Jesus? Is this deep stretches, or what are we talking about here?
Yeah. So, unfortunately, in this country, when you tell somebody yoga, they're thinking of hatha yoga, which is the physical exercises to condition the body for health and deeper type of meditation. So that's what people think of yoga. But the larger body of yoga is techniques of unifying your awareness with God. So
Yeah,
that's the larger part of yoga. That's
that's
the
what
deep,
yoga means, right? Union.
yeah, union with God, exactly. Right. So the yoga of Jesus, it just I brought that up as a topic because well, just because it really occurred to me as I go through uh my studies and and searching, um as you know, it's becoming increasingly clear to me that it's the whole ball of wax is raising your frequency and your frequency of consciousness, then operating from higher and higher levels of consciousness. And my wife and I, we just came back from a trip. We drove up to Northern California, and it really hit me that actually Jesus got some great techniques for that. And I thought, you know what? That's the yoga of Jesus. It's pretty good. And what's nice is he kept it simple and highly effective, in my opinion. So it's like, you know what? He left some really good stuff.
That's good.
Yeah. So I
Good
thought,
job,
well,
Jesus.
that would be a good topic, the yoga of Jesus.
You're getting good at marketing here. I like it.
Right. A catchy title.
That's right.
So I don't even know where to start because I didn't really iron it all out. But I think the good place to start is when he talked about the greatest commandments. He said the greatest commandments: love God with all your heart and all your mind and all your strength. And I forgot there was like another part to that, but
And love your
that's
neighbor as yourself.
yeah, that's the second one. Love your neighbor as yourself. So the first one, I think that's easy for Jesus to say because he just knew the Father so intimately. So love, it was natural. But for a lot of us that maybe started out with God's just a concept, maybe you don't even believe in it as a concept. So the first one's a tough one until you actually begin to get to know God a little bit. And as you begin to get to know God a little bit, you just realize how incredibly lovable God is because he's just incredibly sweet when you start to become aware of God moving in your life and realizing, what's so funny is God so many times is blessing everybody. But it's like, oh, you'll never believe the coincidence. I needed to get, this and this and this, and I only had so much money, and boom, I go in the store and there it is on sale. It's like, oh my, and so a lot of God's sweetness and caring for you, a lot of times is just dismissed as, oh, a lucky coincidence. My dad used to do that all the time. Uh, what did I tell him that he finally was, because he was kind of like a atheist, but I think he was an atheist because he was mad at God because of his childhood was pretty rough. So I think he was mad at God. So it's like, okay, I'm mad at you, so I won't believe in you.
Yeah, that'll teach him.
That'll teach you, right?
Yeah.
So, but I said, well, Dad, I think it's like just your good karma. So he was comfortable with that because he had something to do with it.
Yeah.
He'll go, you'll never believe my good karma. And he'll
Yeah,
talk
that's right.
about how he was trying to make something happen and boom, it just clicked. And this happened all the time for him. But so I thought, my God, here's God just taking care of you and being so sweet and loving to you. And
Yeah.
you're just missing that. But I think so once that begins, you begin to understand and feel the presence of God as that peace and love and joy in your heart, and begin to watch for the movement in your life. You begin to see how incredibly sweet God is when you allow him to be, when you're not putting up all kinds of your roadblocks you from your subconscious programming creating disaster in your life that
Yeah.
you're creating, that most people are blaming on God if they
So
believe.
so basically you're watching for the blessings. You're
Yeah, just being a little more you know, it's like people will ask God for something and then they completely forget about it. And maybe it might take a few months and then they get it. By then they completely forget they'd asked God, and there's no
right.
gratitude or acknowledgement. So you're missing how incredibly sweet the Creator is, you know. And trust me, if you're getting your ass kicked, it's because there's no other way to move you forward. Yeah, that's just, you're giving them no choice. You know, I like to use the example of as a parent, you know, if you have kids, excuse me, and you know, it's like, honey, go clean up your room, and you go, okay, and next day you look in the room, it's just the same disaster. They didn't clean it up at all. It's like, yes, sweetie, please, you know, clean your room up, okay, okay. A day later, they still haven't done it. So now you're getting a little firmer. It's like, okay, so clean your room up, right? You told me you would, you didn't. Go clean your room. Okay, okay, okay. Check in 3 hours later, they're on, you know, playing their video games. And now it's like, clean your room up or I'm taking away your video game. Why are you so mean to me?
Yeah.
Right. So
You've been eavesdropping in my
yeah,
house?
right. So you know, you ask sweetly 3 times and now you're having to get a little firm. So it's kind of the same thing. Many times God prompts you about things you need to do for your own good, sweetly, hundreds of times, and then gets a little firmer, and then finally disaster befalls you, you know, and then you're all angry at God. It's like, well, why'd you let this happen? It's like, I've been trying to tell you for 3 years, you got to do this and this and this, or you're going to end up running into a lot of trouble. So that's love God with all your mind and all your strength, and love thy neighbor as thyself. So that's probably a little easier for people, but it's a commandment out of the oneness of all things, right? Another time Jesus had said, what you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. There was a story, I guess, of some guy, I don't know if he was a rich guy or I forgot, I'm mixing my stories up, but he loved the man, and Jesus said to the man, he said, when I was sick, you came and helped take care of me. When I was in prison, you visited me. You know, when I was grieving, you comforted me. He goes, Master, I've never seen you before in my life. He goes, what you do the least of my brethren, you do to me. So he's speaking from that um, that uh, um, omniscience, that expanded consciousness where he experiences consciousness in all beings. So that's the first good one, is treat your neighbor, love thy neighbor as thyself. So the love you feel for yourself, you should also try to extend it to others, because you're one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then Jesus was big on forgiveness. He said judge not, lest you be judged by that very same judgment. And what was the other one? The other one was, it just slipped out of my mind. But basically, he was big on forgiveness. As you forgive, you're forgiven, right? So here he's talking about, don't judge, because that's going to boomerang on you, right? And forgive, because as you forgive others, you're also forgiven. So here he's talking about, these are energetic commandments in my opinion, right? That loving God, right, with all your strength, and then love thy neighbor as thyself. Extend that love to others, right? Forgive, right? Forgive and don't judge. And as far as I'm concerned, those are just all the key energetic techniques for raising your frequency. It was really interesting. When I was up in Northern California, I bought some. I had a book on I don't know. It was supposed to be a super famous near death experience. This guy was struck by lightning and died, and, he came back, and he was a completely changed man. He was like special forces subcontractor for the military. So I mean, he had been like an assassin and all that type of thing. And this happened when he was 22, and he completely changed after that, and just had actually some pretty amazing abilities. But one of the things that he said that really struck me was he was being shown around, you could say, by a being of light, right, angel, or whatever you want to call it. And the angel said, basically, he says, I want to take you to higher realms. He says, but you got to first forgive everybody that you're holding grudges against. He says, I can't take you any higher. So I thought, boy, there it is right there. Your lack of forgiveness is anchoring low frequency energy in your being, which prevents you from going to higher realms. But not just when you're out of your body, but also when you're in your body. It's doing the same thing. You can experience higher realms. You don't have to have a near-death experience, and you don't have to have deep, incredible meditation. Just your joy and your peace is indicating the realms that you're able to experience. And think about it. From my previous part of my life, when I was the king of grudge holders, I could hold a grudge forever, right? And lack of forgiveness and all that. But those are just anchors that prevent you from raising your consciousness to higher and higher levels. So let's put the new age type of stuff aside. It's like, oh, airy fairy type thing. Your consciousness, your levels of consciousness, you could say you experience directly as your peace, as your joy, as your happiness, as your courage, as your sense of humor, your willingness to be understanding and forgiving. Those are all indicative of the level of consciousness you're holding. So let's think about that. Everybody knows somebody in their life that's just an angry, resentful, jealous person. And every time you see them, they're just it's a low consciousness. They're unhappy. They're angry about somebody. They're resentful. They're complaining about somebody. It's like, ooh, you're in a little bit of level of hell there, dude. That's not much fun, right?
Yeah.
And if you've ever had the opportunity to see somebody like that have a true religious conversion, right, became a Christian or whatever, and tapped into Jesus and just decided just to forgive everybody and just love people. I mean, the shift is incredible. It's like, it's not even the same person. Well, it is the same person. They're just replacing their operating system with a higher frequency vibration and letting go of the lower frequency vibration. What's your operating system? Operating system is your concepts. If your concept is, if somebody does you bad, man, you get them back, and you get them back twice. Right? Yeah, don't mess with me, man. I'll make your life hell, right? It's like, whoa, that's your operating system. And that is shifting your frequency fairly low, right? On the other hand, if you have, let's just say you got a loving grandparent, just happy, you just feel so much love from them. And they go, yeah, no, I just learned a long time ago. You just don't sweat the small stuff, and you let it go. You give people a break. Everybody's trying their best. Well, that's their operating system, is what they're trying to pass on to you. And you can see the results of their operating system in their peace and their joy. So really, Jesus was giving some really good operating systems in a very simple way. One of the operating systems that he placed out there for us: listen, treat others the way you want to be treated. Okay, yeah, you don't need to have a PhD in philosophy to take something good out of that. It's like, yeah, just treat people right. You're getting ready to deal with somebody. How would you want to be treated if the roles were reversed? That's really simple. Very powerful, because very few of us will say, yeah, I just want to be punched in the face and spit on every time that person sees me. We'd say, well, I was having a bad day. I'd like to have a little bit of understanding. I didn't mean it. I'd like the person to have a little compassion for I was having a rough day too. All right. Well, so you want a little compassion, a little understanding, give it. Give people the benefit of the doubt, right? Even if they're deliberately doing you wrong. It's just they're just an unhappy person. I promise you, they're going about their life in a selfish way that affects them more than anyone else they're affecting, right? So my teacher would say, when you're dealing with people and you're having a difficult time, first thing is try to understand. And one of the most powerful ways to understand is to understand that nobody is deliberately being miserable in their minds. Everybody is trying to be happy. But what if your concept of how to be happy is all wrong?
Right.
Like John Wooden said, Coach Wooden, I call him Guru Wooden. He goes, happiness begins where selfishness ends. That's incredibly wise, but so simple. And it isn't until you start being less selfish that you actually begin to see, oh, he's right. Yeah, no, that's, who would have guessed?
It makes sense too, when you think of these far out concepts of there's only one mind, and all of us thinking and running around thinking we're separate, autonomous individuals that have our own specialness and our own unique value. But it's all really the one mind fragmented, that if I judge the other and blame the other and attack the other, I'm harming myself, because it is me. But that concept of only one mind is the far out that you were talking about earlier, of airy fairy new agey, or what. It's not even new age, it's even more far out than new age. And that's why it all works, right?
And I think it's the least obvious of all the principles of modern spirituality. Jesus, he didn't go, well, not that was written down, go into deep depth of that. He hinted at it. What you do to the least of my brethren, you do to me. But it's easy then for people to say, well, you're God, so yeah, you experience that, but that's not for us.
Makes sense. Judge the other, you will be judged. Love the other, you will be loved. Love the least of them, you will love me. I mean, that all comes together.
All comes together, right?
In one.
But it'd be like if you got a 5-year-old and you start talking about, well, if you think about the quantum field, it's all consciousness.
Yeah, that's funny.
His eyes are going to cross and go, okay, Dad, and just walk off, go play his Nintendo.
My 7-year-old, I have those conversations to him. He's like, Mom, Dad's doing it again.
Right. So you got to think Jesus was speaking to a fairly unsophisticated people. Not that we're any more sophisticated now. In some ways, we're more lost than ever, right? But he was trying to give you principles of living that if you actually use these principles, you will begin to see what I'm talking about. It's like you and I practice martial arts together, right?
That's right.
And we train primarily by principles, right? It's not like, okay, if I raise my hand here, then you bring your hand here. But if I counter this, bring your elbow. I mean, my God, how complex is that? And would it ever work?
Yeah, no, this is a dance at that point, choreography.
Well, and it's of the mind. It's of the mind. It'll be way too slow in a real combat situation. But we train by principles, and one of the principles is relaxation. So if I push you, rather than you fighting with me, you let that shoulder go, and the other shoulder naturally comes forward. So I realized that basically it almost kind of creeps into the religious world too, of rather than just teaching principles, a lot of times they teach specifics. Well, do this and do this and do this, and a lot of times people go, yeah, but in real life, what do I actually do? When it talks about, but and they give you scenarios at work or whatever, what do I actually do? Well, why are people so confused? Because they're not being taught from principles, spiritual principles. And this is what I realized. Jesus gave spiritual principles. Treat others the way you want to be treated. Okay, well, what's going on at work? This, and this. What should I do? Well, how would you want to be treated? Oh, well, that kind of makes it easier, right? Love God and love your neighbors, love your fellow human being. Try to love them as much as you love yourself, right?
Mhm.
Forgiveness. You want to be forgiven? You got a bunch of stuff that you would love to be forgiven. Yeah, well, you're forgiven as you forgive. So if you want to be forgiven, start forgiving others. You don't have to start with the big stuff. That's the hardest stuff. Start with the small stuff,
Mhm.
right? Somebody said something to you that you thought was a little offensive, and now you got a little bit of a grudge against them. The guy's a jerk, right? Let it go. Let it go, right? Don't judge. That's powerful. Well, you can judge, but you'll be measured by that same judgment.
All right.
Right. So I realized that Jesus gave some really good principle-based spiritualities that will serve to unblock your energy, to raise your frequency. And you see it in what I call real Christians. You know, you have what I call the Christian Social Club, where everybody knows their secret handshake. And if you don't have the secret handshake, right? By secret handshake, I don't mean actual handshake, but I mean, you know all the words to say as part of your club,
Mhm.
right? And as long as you spit out the right words at the right time, you're in,
Mhm.
right? So there's a Christian Social Club, and then everyone else who's not part of the club is going to burn in hell. So, you know, and that's their fault. I gave them a chance to believe in Jesus.
Better get in the club.
Yeah, better get in the club, man. You're going to burn in hell forever. And then what I call real Christians, real followers of Christ, and they're usually the quiet, you know, humble person that there's just love in their eyes, and there's just a sweetness to them, and a joy and a peace. Yeah, because they've been practicing the principles Jesus gave, and they begin to feel the presence of God as that peace, as that joy, as increased love in their hearts.
One of our recent videos, we talked about the Goodyear blimp and how the natural state of the Goodyear blimp, or at least the natural propensity, is high. The resonance is high; it's going up, and the reason it's low is because it's tied down. And I've been doing this practice of just walking around and forgiving people in my mind. I forgive you, and then I go through this mental exercise of then forgiving myself of my judgment and looking for those judgments. And I realize there's so many judgments. My whole world is based on judgments.
Welcome to being a human, man.
Well, like you just said, though, the wonderful thing about it is as I look at them, I'm just looking at them, and I'm asking Jesus, show me the real world instead of this world that I have made. You know, the psychological principle of my projection has made my perception. It's not real, it's my projection. It's coming from me, and I'm perceiving it, thinking it's reality, but it's just my projection of my judgments. And as I release my judgments one by one, kind of digging in, the natural state of being that is left is love. It's such a high, beautiful frequency.
Yeah. So I think that was the difference between my teacher, who I call my teacher, and I've had many people I've been learning from, but I call him my teacher because I feel like this was the final teacher for me to begin to complete what I needed to do in this world, right? But one of the things that he said was, we lost it.
Oh, dang it. We waited. It was the thing.
Oh, so you're talking about, cutting all that away.
The next life will get it.
Yeah. What the difference in the main difference in his teaching from everything I studied before is he basically said, you already are. There's nothing else that needs to be done besides cut away all your beliefs that you're not. Which was completely different for me, because up until that point, I was on a spiritual path. I knew I wasn't where I needed to be. I absolutely knew that was true. But I knew I had to go somewhere down the road, didn't know how far, wasn't quite sure how to get there, but I was busy being on the spiritual path. And for my teacher, it was more like, no, you're in your bed having a bad dream. Just wake up.
Mm.
Know where you need to go. And that's where this concept of just cutting away your judgments, cutting away your lack of forgiveness, cutting away all that human crap, ropes that tie us down to lower levels of frequency.
Yeah.
Right. And the beauty of it is the moment you begin to cut away some of that lower frequency judgments, you feel it. You're just a little bit happier, a little more peaceful. Then you start getting greedy, start cutting all the ropes you can find, right? And you start to really feel the change in your consciousness. So it's a different, it's nowhere you got to go. And what's really interesting is when I read these near-death experiences, which I think is not the right name because they're dead. These people are dead, not near dead. So I'd say temporary death experiences. Here he was freed from his human body, but yet he was still holding lack of forgiveness. And so that's what these people say. And I think this is what is the principle behind reincarnation, is that at some level of your beingness, you store judgment that transcends the physical body. It's not left behind when you die. You still got it. So I think really,
it's not in your brain. It's not in your body.
It's not in your brain. You're storing it in some other energetic aspect of your being, and you carry it with you. And I think, honestly, I think this is what draws you into the reincarnation cycle. If you got to take a birth and clean it up.
Right.
Remember, like I said, you go to the Yosemite Park and you had a great time. You had a big party and there's beer cans all over the place and garbage all over the place. And you say, okay, guys, we'll see you next time. And the park ranger pulls up and goes, whose mess is all this? Is that yours? Well, yeah, we had a party. Yeah, you got to clean it up, dude. There's nobody that's going to come and pick up after you. Clean up your mess, then you can leave. So I think it's kind of like that. But you can't even hire somebody to clean up your mess. You have to change your judgments. And this includes forgiveness, right? So judgment and forgiveness, including forgiving yourself. For some people, their biggest lack of forgiveness is themselves. And what a horrible rope. You got yourself tied by your neck down to a rock when you don't forgive yourself.
It's so beautiful then to think of it that way, like my opportunity to forgive, right? Like I forget who it was, but they were met by some kind of light being or some kind of enlightened thing. And they're like, what a wonderful opportunity you had. And he was describing this horrible life event like he was a victim. This is happening to me. Feel sorry. And the being was like, what a wonderful opportunity to forgive.
Yeah.
Because he was unleashing himself. He was untying himself. So he didn't have to come back. It's like, learn the lesson now. Why do I have to do it again?
Yeah. And I think the way my view now of karma is you have these patterns within you someplace that's being energized by your subconscious, maybe your conscious mind, and it creates the scenario in the external world to show you, look, this is the projection of a pattern you have within yourself. Don't worry about the external. Change that pattern within yourself. So it's almost like, you got a little projector on your chest and you keep running a Disney movie that you're sick of watching. Everywhere you go, you see the stupid movie on the walls, you see it on the floor, and you're thinking, how do I get away from this movie, right? Not realizing the projector is on your chest. So I think that's what karma is. You have these patterns that are being energized at some level of your consciousness, creating it in the external world to remind you, hey, do you like this movie? No, I hate that freaking movie. Well, change the channel, dude. Yeah. You have a pattern within you that's projecting in the external world. So this is the sweetness of God. You don't have to find some guru on the top of a mountain someplace to what do I do? What do I do?
Mhm.
What do you see around you? If you see nothing but beautiful, wonderful people and just so sweet and loving and kind, great. You got the right patterns going.
That's right. Celebrate.
Yeah, celebrate. If you see a crap that just keeps following you and keeps happening over and over and over, that's your pattern manifesting.
Yep.
So
Yep.
go and dig it out,
Yep.
undo your judgment. Well, I think the best judgment undo, I mean, if you want to give one that works all the time, this too is God.
Mhm.
This too is God and perfect.
Mm.
Right. So that's to me the way. You don't have to undo your human judgment. You just overlay it with a divine judgment.
Yeah. And you can figure, I mean, we could figure all kinds of things that at least raise the frequency a little bit. Like, hey, I get they're crazy, but they're doing the best they can. Right. This person that offended me, they're doing the best they can. They're not doing it good, but it's, the best they can. I mess up like that. It's a little better.
Yeah, whatever works for you. I mean, I told you I had two friends that were friends of mine for 20 years, and they got to the point where I could no longer sustain the friendship with the way they were acting. And it really hurt and it really bothered me for a long time. I tried all kinds of things. It took a long time to find, and it was almost like a ball, a knotted twine. It wasn't just one knot. I had to undo a bunch of knots till now. I can just think of them and just send them love and hope they have a wonderful life. Yeah, but it took probably about 10 years. So it's not always easy, but it's
You're a
always
slow learner though.
yeah, but it's always worth it to let go. Oh, that was a joke. Okay.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's joking.
absolutely. Yeah.
You're like,
Listen,
yeah.
listen, the Earth is an insane asylum. I'm still an inmate. Hopefully, I'm getting ready to be released, but I'm still an inmate. So
That's
you
good.
got to take
Well,
everything I say with a little bit of grain.
unfortunately, that makes me one with you. Hey,
Yeah.
we got 4 minutes. How are you going to wrap it up? Yoga of Jesus. How are we going to keep in mind these spiritual principles and practice this yoga?
Well, you don't have to do them all. One leads to the other, right? One leads to, so just pick one that resonates with you, whether it's just practicing trying to love everyone, right? Love everyone as a piece of God, or just practice forgiveness, right? Just start, think of, and God will remind you, all of a sudden that kid in 5th grade that punched you in the face, then you hated his guts.
Oh,
You forgot completely about it, but you still hate his guts.
I remember
God,
that guy.
yeah, God will bring up to your memory things you need to let go. So you can do forgiveness. You can practice just treating others the way you wish to be treated. Yeah, any one of them. It's like those are all like spokes of a wheel. They'll all lead to the center hub. So you don't have to make this overly difficult or overly complicated. Just pick one that makes sense to you and resonates, and just start to practice it, even a little bit each day.
That's good, brother. Well, once again, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for putting this on. I appreciate it.
You got it. Oh, hold on. I almost